You have to walk the talk. You have to be authentic as a leader. If you're not doing it, they see that.
It is entirely universal. There's other people who are going through this.
For me, a great leader needs to be able to marry three things: vision, systems, and people.
Welcome to Leadership Moments. If this is your first time, and if you are returning, thank you for your support.
This show is about leaders from all walks of life, leadership tips, and maybe even a little of what you wouldn't expect to help you in leadership.
We would appreciate it if you tell someone else about our podcast as we strive to support all leaders that want to just be better.
Let's get on with the show.
Today, our guest is Ken Rusk. Ken is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker who defied odds by achieving a Wall Street Journal best-selling status with his book, Blue Collar Cash. Ken's insights have been featured in Forbes, USA Today, Epic Times, Fox Business, and New York Post. Notably, Ken's achievements are rooted in his unconventional path as he takes pride in his lack of higher education. His diverse accomplishments include being an honorary commander of the 180th Fighter Wing Group and earning multiple awards like Top Workplaces in Ohio, BBB Ethics Awards, and over a dozen Franchise of the Year honors. Ken is actively shaping future American leaders and is committed to giving back. He supports organizations like Make-A-Wish, Tunnel to Towers, and Ronald McDonald House. He also teaches at Boys and Girls Clubs and Junior Achievement. Today, we are going to talk about how you can be successful by being simple and proactive. Let's jump in. Ken, I'm super excited to have you on our show here today. You have a very interesting story, something that's a little more unique than the typical guest we have. And I think that our listeners are going to gain a lot of insights from you today. So I'd love to start with really the beginning, the story of how you got into what you're doing and what makes you a little more unique than our other guests that we've had.
Well, thanks, Stacey. I appreciate you having me. I guess you could accuse me of being a blue-collar entrepreneur of sorts. Everybody when they were younger had their part-time jobs. I had 4 or 5 jobs before I was 15, but then I wanted to get serious about it. So I remember my high school shared a fence with an industrial park. And there's a hole in that fence that we used to cut through after school to walk through to get to the carryout where we would hang out, and just do what we did back then. So there were no screens back then. So we just kind of hung out and, did whatever. But yeah, I remember I wanted my first full-time job. I wanted to be able to buy a car, do that kind of thing, take my girlfriend out for pizza, go bowling with my buddies, whatever you could think up. So I walked to this industrial park many times. And I remember this one building had a lot of hustling, bustling people and, equipment and, things that young guys liked, backhoes and dump trucks and all that kind of stuff. So I went in, I said, what do you do here? I knew someone that worked there actually. And they said, well, we dig ditches. And I said, well, I think I'm qualified to do that. So in the summertime, I dug ditches. In the wintertime, I worked in the office. And that gave me like a well-rounded kind of overlook of the whole operation. So when I was 18, it was either go to college or what's next. And half the people that I knew went to school and the other half didn't. So for me, it was just natural to keep working with my hands. And they came to me and they said, we want to open franchises around the country. And because you've seen the front and the back and all of it, we'd like you to do that for us. So I moved to Columbus and then Cincinnati and then Pittsburgh and then Chicago and opened up these companies from literally scratch, from nothing. And lived out of a suitcase for 4 or 5 years and then got tired of that, like most people do. And I then settled down in Toledo, Iowa in 1986. And we started with 6 people, and I think we're up to about 200 right now. So it's been a hell of a ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing story, and thank you for sharing it. And so I want to understand a little bit more as you go through this. Here you are making this decision after high school, and you said you have half that go to school, half that don't. You chose not to, and now you're put in this position that you're starting up these new, places. And so how did you learn these things? What did you lean on to help you survive and thrive during these really large moments of learning?
Well, that's a great question because there's an enormous amount of learning that was going on. But all I could do is say, what does our home office look like? What does it look like now that it's been thriving for years? And I began with the end in mind. Okay. I need this department to look like that. I need this department to look like that. I need this dump truck to look like that. I need to see this many tools on each truck. I need to see the phone system. The phone system had to have this many phones and it had to have a central bank and it had to have all these things on it. So even the furniture and the carpet and all of it. So all I did was, recreate what was already there. And I think that's the lesson for life, really, because you don't do anything in life without, a plan or an eventuality or a result that you're looking for. You don't build a house. You don't, make a map to go somewhere. You don't do anything without a destination. And so for me, I just kept thinking, well, what does it look like? And how can I replicate that over and over and over again? And I think that's what made the thing special for me. And that, and the fact that I got to make mistakes with other people's money, which was because we didn't make many mistakes, but you were working with a new owner and you were trying to teach him or her while you were trying to replicate the operation. So it was a really interesting dynamic. Plus the fact that I was 18 years old working with, 6'4", 280-pound union Chicago plumbers, which was no fun because they have their way of making what you don't know. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
Yeah, what I love about that is you say it so calmly, like, yeah, I got to fail, right? Like, and so many people are scared of failing, but the reality is you learn so much from failing. And it sounds like you had to fail with these 6'4", bigger people physically around you, and being able to handle that in a humble way and a learning, open-minded way is really amazing. So I love how you did that. Really, really cool.
Well, the interesting thing about that is if you look up the word risk and you Google it, there's a few, I don't want to call them poems, I guess they are, about risk. Those who risk nothing are nothing, do nothing. I mean, so yeah, I'm a little bit of a risk junkie. I always was. And maybe that's part of the reason that I didn't get, weirded out by these guys. But I just, again, I kept the vision of what it was supposed to look like in mind. And I think, again, we can all take that in our daily lives and use it, because we tend to react to things. We tend to lead these really reactive lives, like we react to the weather, we react to, our friends and our influences and our family. And we need to start proacting a lot more, because that's where you take control of your mind, your thoughts, and what you want to do with them.
Yeah, I really love the way that you think about that, because you're right. We are so reactive. And even though we try every day to be proactive, and even as simple as you said, I began with the end in mind as you were building, those offices and getting them up and running. And that is the proactive mindset. What are some things? So knowing you're a risk taker, right? And knowing that you want to be more proactive, what are some, tips that you would give our listeners of how to be more proactive?
Well, I think it starts with being intentional. I know people use those words all the time, but you have to put it into practice in a real simple way. I look at life as one of those books, Life for Dummies. You remember those books in the old days, that like This for Dummies or whatever? So I try to keep things horribly simple. Okay. And, if you want something, I remember when I was 12, I wanted to have this aluminum bat. Well, my father had 5 boys under the age of 9, and we were in a small 1,200 square foot house, and he wasn't making any money at the time. And we struggled, and, we wore the hand-me-downs and we did all that stuff. But he said, if there's something you want beyond what I can provide for you, then you need to go out and find a way to do it. So I simply wanted this $40 aluminum bat, and I found a way. I got a job that paid me $2 an hour. And I said, okay, I could trade labor for that thing. I was amazed by that. I could go work in your yard, and 20 hours later, I'm going to have this aluminum baseball bat. I was blown away by how simple that was. And so now I use that. I use that in my daily life. People like to go all theoretical and all PhD on you about how life should be and how, you should plan everything in your future. I mean, you do need to plan, but you need to plan in a very simple way. Get out of the clouds and just literally draw it on a piece of paper, and then build these little pathways to each one of these things. We practice that here every day. There's, on the other side of that door, there's a huge black glass board that has nothing but goals on it for all of the people that work here. But the goals are really simple in their design, in their plan, and in their results. So yeah, just kind of keep it that way, and I think it'll work.
I love that idea. And I have to ask, because as your company has grown and probably brought in, I'm assuming, maybe people with higher education, maybe not, but because you're taught in college a lot of times, or in other corporations, to do that higher thinking, I'm going to say like philosophical, as you're saying, Do you get people that try to change those simple goals into something that might be more convoluted? Not intentionally. They're trying to, in their mind, make it more clear, but really they're adding some murkiness to it. Do you find that? And if you do, like, how do you help them see how there is an easier way?
Well, again, it's all in how you first put the goal down for me. Or I don't call them goals anymore. I call them timed pathways. I think the word goal is extremely overused. I mean, if you look up the word goal, it has 10 different meanings. And whenever someone says, oh, that's my goal, I always say to myself, well, is there a time pathway attached to it? Or is that just a hope or a wish or a dream? And those are the words, even when I speak, I say, I don't want to bum you guys out, but I want you to drop the word goal, wish, hope, dream, because without a timed pathway, they're nothing. They're just maybe some days. Okay. And I like to live in today. So when you write your goal down, I mean, I could do something as simple as I'll just pick a gal that she was actually in my first book, Blue Collar Cash. She said she had a wish or a dream to pay her father off because she borrowed money to buy a used car. And she wanted to pay him $2,500. And I said, well, can you afford $48 a week? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, then you'll have him paid off in a year. And she looked at me like I just invented penicillin. You know what I mean? So, it's as simple as writing it down on the board. Today's January 1st. I'm going to save $48 a week. In 1 year, I'm going to pay off my father. I'm going to feel great about it. I'm going to put the end date. I'm going to sign it. I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to go to payroll department. I'm going to have them take the money out so in a place that I can't see it anymore. I mean, it's insanely simple. But yet when I speak, people say, well, Rusk, that seems kind of simple. I'm like, well, if it's so simple, how come you're not doing it? You're right. Sometimes the easiest things, like you just said, are the less convoluted ones. And people tend to want to overthink things when simplicity rules the day. And I can tell you that the more simple your goal is, the more confident you're going to be hitting it, the quicker you anticipate its result. Then when you get the result, you're like, man, I can't wait to do that again. And now you're on 2 or 3 of these time pathways at the same time, which is really anticipation in my mind is the elixir of life. I mean, you anticipate vacations with such fervor and so I can't wait to go do what I'm about to do. Why are we anticipating our whole life that way? Okay, in every aspect. So yeah, that's simplicity seems to work for us.
Yeah, I really like the timed pathway way to think about things and changing those other words away from it. So moving from a vision board and how do I use my time pathway to get to my vision board? So I really like that idea a lot. Now, you said when we were talking before the show, you said, you need to learn how to let go. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what that means and how you help people do that.
So think of a typical entrepreneur, okay? A typical entrepreneur, overworked. He or she goes home on Friday and they say, honey, and they beat their chest, I worked 70 hours this week and I fixed this and I changed that. And I yelled at this guy and I designed this and I moved that and I built this, and I also have early onset high blood pressure. I have diabetes. I can't remember my kid's first name or what sport he or she plays. There's no hero in that. And I don't care who says there is. There's no hero in working 70 hours a week and killing yourself so you can be the boss. Okay. For me, you gotta let go of that. You have to say, now, first off, there's no way you can create a company by yourself. There's no way. And by the way, if you try, you're going to limit your success. So very early on, I said, I'm committing to working about 40 to 45 hours, maybe 50. I'm going to share the workload with other people here, but I'm also going to share the benefits of that workload for them. I'm going to search for entrepreneurialism around the company, which I found in 15 or 20 different places of the 200 people that I have. And those people have been with me 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years now. And they've built their lives around and through this company. So you really have to say, am I running my company or is my company running me? Okay. And why am I even running this place to begin with? Like, why did I even build this company to begin with? Isn't there a whole list of things that I want to get out of it? And are you getting those things out of it? Because if it's just illness, then you're doing it wrong. And again, I don't think the reward is someone going, oh, wow, there's the CEO or there's the boss. I mean, that's superficial at best. The reward is living very well, living comfortably, having comfort, peace, and freedom, which is what I talk about a lot in the book. And yeah, that kind of seems to work for us.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And what I like about that is you talked about, hey, this is, am I getting out of what I planned on? Which immediately in my head went to the time pathway. Was there a time pathway in what you're doing? And did you have to put in the 70 hours to get there? Or is it really the 40 to 50 hours that you need to do that? And people say it's so easy to say, but so hard to do. But I think if you had a timed pathway, or you have, you're very clear and open and transparent about what is important to you, it can be easy. There's always work to do tomorrow, no matter what. And now it's just deciding, what am I going to do today and leave for tomorrow?
You're exactly right. Because on any time pathway, I don't care if it's one step or it's 52 steps, like a year, or it's 104 steps for 2 years, whatever. Don't be so hung up on getting it done as you are in progressing through getting it done. In other words, if you don't think you can do it in a year, so what? Put it to 2 years. Who cares? Okay. You want to get a sports car, you want to visit Spain, or you want to go to do something, make sure that it is a for sure timed pathway, not an if timed pathway. Right. So just put it off into a time frame that's comfortable for you, because, the whole world gets so busy. And again, we are so reactive. It's a very stress-less thing to sit around and proact in ways that, wow, I'm going to get this time path. I'm going to do 4 of these at the same time. They're all going to have different time frames, but I'm going to see the progression happening of each one of these things. And you're right about one thing for sure. The first step is the hardest. So when someone says, oh, it's easy to say, but hard to do. No. The first step is hard to do. And that's to plan it, to design it. The second through the 50th step, those are a breeze. You just have to walk the earth and stay alive. And you're going to get those things done once you set it up properly. So, yeah, I think people see that they can't get past that first step. And that's what really holds most of them back. But once they do it, they're like, man, that was so easy. And that's why I get that feedback. Hey, Rusk, that isn't rocket science. Well, if it isn't, then why are you doing it, right?
Yeah. And actually, we had a guest a couple weeks ago that talked about how crossing the starting line is harder than crossing the finish line sometimes, and being able to do that to get started. So I totally agree with you with that. Now, you talked about entrepreneurship or entrepreneurialism. That is something we've also talked about in the past on our show. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you've incorporated that within the culture of your organization.
So I made you could call it a mistake, but it turned out to be a blessing. So many years ago, I walked into, when you're in business and you're new, you'll rise to a certain plateau, a level, and then you'll plateau for a couple of years. And then something will happen. You go to the next level and you plateau. And then that keeps happening. It's really strange. It's like long steps with little ones in between. And one day I just walked into, I had a whole bunch of people that had been there a very long time that I thought were very smart, very dedicated. They owned it. So I walked them into a conference room. I gave a small piece of paper and a pencil. I said, I want you to write down how far you think this company can go this year. Okay. Further than before. And before you write it down, I just want you to know that I'm going to give you complete control to do that. And I'm also going to share with you in the benefit of that newfound money. And their eyebrows went up. They're like, oh, okay. So I had a number in my mind as well. Well, when you know it, Stacy, all of their numbers were $1 million or $2 million higher than mine.
That's fabulous.
So I didn't even tell them my number was, okay? Well, it proved the point that I've been talking about for a long time. You are always your own self-limiter, and you don't even know it. That's the thing. So having these people say, okay, Ken, so time out. You're saying that if we get from this level to this level, we're not only going to have a say in the decision-making and the control to get there and the design of how we do that, but you're also going to share in the benefit of that? I said, yeah. They said, well, thank you, and get the hell out of our way and let us go do it, right? and but it's true. You have these people, and you're like, wow, I didn't know that right in front of my nose I have this gem of a person, and I didn't know it because I never asked. Okay, I never said, what do you think, right? Because I'm too busy, pounding my chest. Oh, I'm the ego guy. It's just too hard to do it that way. So you don't know who you have in your organization for the simple fact that you didn't ask. And God forbid you put that challenge to them, look out, because they're going to take your company way further than you can do it yourself, I promise.
So true. Sometimes the best thing to do as a leader is just to stand behind or beside the person and let them do their job, because they usually can do it better than you. And like you said, the whole self-limiter. Yeah. Love that. Well, one of the things that
I think there's a visual that I like to use. If you're running a company and you're a true visionary, which is what you want to do to drive it, you literally need to be up at 10,000 feet in the plane, the surveillance plane, looking at all the people that are coming at you that you can't see from the ground. The tanks are over there, the mortars are over there, the artillery's over there, the army's over there. And you need to be able to look way out and at the same time looking down on what you've got. Because then if you stay up in that kind of a place, you can make these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mile into the future moves where you can't make them if you're just in the trenches, trying to shoot all day long. I mean, it's not going to work. You're not going to see what's coming at you. And so I love rising above the building, tearing the roof off metaphorically and looking down at it and saying, okay, well, where do I want to plug myself in today? That's true freedom right there. And you get to see what's coming at you in the distance. And I think those are the things that if you want to shepherd your company, that's how you got to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, that's so true. So true. And what it does is it gets you to different areas within your organization by being able to do that. You're not just stuck in one area or their comfortable space. You're forcing yourself to go into different areas as well. So I love that idea. And the visual helps quite a bit. All right. So I do want to spend a little time because we talk a lot about being part of the community, networking, and how important it is, in your career, but also just in life. If you are a leader in life, not just for your organization or your team, you want to give back and you want to be part of your community. And you are very active within your community and even donating some net proceeds for yourself as well to others. And I'd love to talk about kind of what you do, tell our listeners what you do, why you do it, and how to encourage others to join as well.
Well, the cool thing is this is another thing I got because I thought I was doing the right thing and I ended up not. So I used to take the checks that we would write to all these organizations and I would make copies of them and put them on the wall. Okay. So people could see that we were a giving organization. Well, people, they'd walk up and down the hallway and they'd be like, oh yeah, I guess that's cool. We give, that's fine. But there was really no involvement in that. And there was no time, talent, and treasure involved in that. So we started doing some things where we actually get involved. I've been the biggest donor in Ohio for Make-A-Wish for a very long period of time. And we have the families come in and we have them talk to us and we are involved in not in their treatment, but in the pathway along their treatment. We have another organization where it's called Mom's House. And if your young daughter somehow gets pregnant and she still wants to finish her high school, she can park her child there during the day, metaphorically, and then you have to be involved. You have to get good grades and you have to help clean the house and do voluntary work there. And we support them a lot and we go there a lot. We meet with the children and do that. We do a thing with Ronald McDonald's house where we take a group of people and we go in there and we cook meals for them. These are things that aren't expensive to do. The Ronald McDonald thing is like $87. Okay. But you get so much goodwill out of it with your people because they wouldn't do that on their own. They might donate to Red Cross or something, which is fine. But when they get involved in actually building a meal for a family that they're never going to meet, okay, there's no accolades involved in this, right? There's no attaboys at all. It's a really cool thing. We're on this thing now where we're doing this peanut butter and jelly drive, where every week a company takes these peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and they give them to the homeless downtown. Well, they get you to build them in bulk. So we're building 250 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in 25 minutes. Okay. And we're packing these little lunches and everything. And it's an assembly line. And we have music and we have people like just slapping peanut butter and jelly. It is so cool. And they love doing it. And there's music and it's just a joy. And they're never going to meet the person that eats the sandwich. They're never going to meet these people, but they know that they're providing and they're helping. So just keep those words in mind: time, talent, and treasure, because some of the most impactful things you can do, Stacey, don't involve a lot of money at all. And they're local and you get to see the local impact. So in fact, that's going to be in the next book. We're talking about those types of things.
That's wonderful. I love that. Love that. All right. There's that sound. It's time for our fun questions. Are you ready for our fun questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Would you rather have the power to read minds or the ability to time travel?
Read minds.
Read minds? Okay.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. All right. Do you want to live in a world without social media or a world without smartphones?
I'd love to live in a world without social media. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, would you rather have the ability to understand and communicate with animals or be able to instantly learn any human language?
Oh my God, that one's tough because I love my dogs and they always talk to me and I wish I knew what the heck they were saying. I'm gonna go with the dogs because I see them every day. I mean, I know a little bit of Spanish enough to make me dangerous, but yeah, I think I would go with the dogs so I could communicate with them. I think that'd be a blast.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a whole nother world. I mean, it's a whole nother world to learn a new language with a human language, but to be able to speak to animals, like it's got to be amazing what you could learn for sure. Great. Well, Ken, thank you so much for your time today. Love the insights. A lot of great takeaways for our listeners. We really appreciate everything you had to offer us. So thank you. And hopefully we'll have you back when you finish your next book.
You guys, Stacey, thanks. I appreciate it. Good to be here.
If you enjoyed the show, please go to leadershipmomentspodcast.com to subscribe to the podcast or on your favorite player, as well as follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
You can also send us a message on what you like and don't like, or what guest you want us to have on the show.
So until next time.
This is Stacey Castor, and what doesn't challenge you won't change you.
And I'm Tracy Ann Palmer. Be the change you wish to see in the world.